Storytime. She was already covered in maggots. I almost didn't post this because I know how it's going to make me look, but I feel so guilty. I needed to tell someone. I know what I did is unforgivable, but I hope writing about it will make me feel better. A few years ago, I started talking to this guy on socials. He had a bunch of friends and a bunch of pictures, so everything seemed fine, but it wasn't. A few months into talking every day, he wanted to meet up. I had been lying to him the whole time, telling him I lived super close, but the truth is I live in a completely different state. That's not all I lied about either. I was pretty much lying about everything. My name, what I looked like, my age. I know that seems bad, and please don't judge me, but it's about to get so much worse. I was pretending to be one of my friends. I was using her pictures, her name, and she had no idea. I chose her because she happened to live in a city that was only about 20 minutes from where the guy lived. That decision is something that I will regret for the rest of my life. I kept ignoring or dodging the question whenever he would ask to meet. Then a couple of times I agreed to meet, and then I'd just cancel. Eventually, I realized he wasn't going to let it go, so I started slowly distancing myself. I thought if I could just stop talking to him altogether, it would be no big deal, and my friend would never have to know. But that's not what happened. He started to get really angry and desperate, telling me he would find me, and I would be sorry. I got really scared and decided to just block him. I was so relieved, and I thought everything was over, and I could put it behind me. A month passed, and I still hadn't heard from him again, but I felt like I should tell my friend everything and apologize, so I did. When she didn't respond, my feelings were hurt, but I thought she was mad and just didn't want to talk to me. After a week went by, and she still didn't respond, I checked the message and realized it was never delivered. I tried calling her, but it said her number was disconnected, and that's when I called her mom. What she told me made my blood run cold. My friend was still missing. They found the person who had seen her last, and it was some random guy who kept telling the police he loved her. I knew in my gut that it was him, the guy I had been talking to. I never thought this could happen, and I really tried to say sorry, but she was already covered in maggots.
Storytime, an unmistakable sound. Everyone keeps answering this question with friends betraying them, or finding out a huge family secret. But the thing that traumatized me most as a kid is nothing like that. I live near Letchworth Village. If you know what that is, then you know a bunch of us used to sneak in as kids. If you don't know what it is, it's an old insane asylum that shut down in 1967. Of course, there's all these rumors that the place is haunted because so many people, like hundreds of people, met really gruesome fates there. Anyway, my friend Hunter was a daredevil and wanted to be one of the stupid kids to sneak in and see what everyone was so afraid of. We were going to really go into Letchworth at night, but we wanted to look around during the day first. We never should have gone in that place. What happened when we got inside is the reason I will only take the stairs 20 years later. Even though it was the middle of the afternoon, I was still terrified when we got inside. It seemed fine though. It was quiet and it smelled like an old abandoned building. We were just walking around when Hunter got really excited and pulled me towards something. When I realized what it was, every hair on my body stood up. There in front of us was the elevator to the building, and the doors were open. Hunter immediately rushed over and stuck his head into the opening. I begged him to stop and kept telling him the elevator in an old building probably isn't something we should be joking around with. But Hunter didn't care. He wanted to know how far down the elevator shaft went. He grabbed a long piece of wood and tried to touch the bottom. When he still couldn't reach it, he laid on his stomach while I held his feet and tried again, but he still couldn't reach the bottom. The whole time Hunter was hanging over the edge of the elevator shaft. I thought I was going to be sick. I tried again to get him to stop, but then he wanted to drop the piece of wood and see how long it took to hit something. It was a decision that would change both of our lives forever. He sat down with his legs over the edge and tried to get me to do the same, but I was too afraid. Hunter counted down from 3, dropped the piece of wood, and the sound of metal scraping against metal was deafening. Hunter was too slow to get up in time, and I closed my eyes because I didn't want to see, but I didn't need to see. Bones crushing is an unmistakable sound. Storytime, they were scratches. I, 24, male, broke up with my long-term girlfriend a couple of months ago. My friends convinced me that it would be a good idea to start online dating, so I did. I figured it would be a harmless way to get back out there, but instead it almost killed me. I went on a couple of dates, and they were terrible but nothing horrifying until the very last time. I met the girl at a restaurant. We ate and laughed. Everything was going better than any of the other dates I had been on. She seemed completely normal, but everything changed when we were eating dessert. Some guy that I've never seen before walked right up to our table and demanded that the girl I was with tell him where his brother was. It took a moment for the people working at the restaurant to get him away from the table, and before they did, he was saying some really crazy stuff. He was accusing her of being the last person to see his brother, calling her evil, and the whole time she just sat there smiling. If I had known everything I know now, I would have ended the date at that moment. She suggested that we get out of the restaurant and finish the date at her place since that guy ruined our dinner. I asked what he was talking about, and she just brushed me off and made it sound like the guy had her confused with someone else. I tried tried to put it out of my mind, but something still felt really off. I know it was stupid, but I decided I enjoyed the first part of our date so much. I wanted to get to know her more. As soon as we got into her house, and she locked the doors, it felt like I would never leave. I think I must have been in survival mode without even knowing it, because I didn't want to drink or eat anything, even though she offered. I was trying to think of a good excuse to leave when air started coming out of the vents, but that wasn't all that came through the vents. A stench so disgusting I almost hurled seemed to surround me. I tried to act unbothered, but I knew I needed to get out of there. Everything that guy in the restaurant was accusing her of seemed to be possible now. I lied and said I had to be up early and really needed to go. I started to second guess myself as I got closer to the door, but then I saw it. There at the bottom of the door to get out of the house were marks, and something was stuck in one of them. It wasn't until the front door closed behind me that I realized it was a fingernail, and the marks, they were scratches.
Storytime, you might be next. Have you ever had that feeling like you're being watched, like there's something or someone out there planning something horrific? Well, I'm living that nightmare right now, and I don't know how much longer I can take it. It all started about 2 months ago, when a girl my age went missing. She was gone for 2 weeks, and we all thought the worst, but then she just showed up to school like nothing happened. She seemed fine, not traumatized at all, but weirdly all of her friends stopped being her friend. A little while later, one of my friends, Adele, found a piece of paper in her room, and it said you might be next. She was definitely freaked out, but we just thought maybe one of her brothers put it there as a prank. But the prank started to pass a line that her brothers would never cross. Adele said she wasn't supposed to tell me, but she started getting pictures of herself that she had no idea existed. She didn't even know when the pictures were taken most of the time. As soon as she would look at them, they would disappear from her screen. One night she called me crying because she woke up to use the bathroom, and when she checked her phone before going back to sleep, she saw something that terrified her. A picture of her sleeping in the same pajamas with the same hairstyle. She felt like the picture could have been taken minutes before she woke up. She even thought whoever it was might still be in her room. I told her to try and calm down, and I would be there as fast as I could. And I did. I went over there as fast as I could, but when I got there the street was so bright with flashing emergency lights. I knew something terrible had happened. My friend was gone, the second girl in my area to just disappear. But the same thing happened. About 2 weeks later, she came back, and everything seemed fine. Only it really wasn't. It took a couple of days for me to see Adele after she came back, but when I looked into her eyes, it wasn't Adele. I don't know how to explain why I felt that way, but I just knew it, and I could tell her mother knew it too. It's been a week since Adele came home, and we've sort of drifted. I thought I should clean my room to take my mind off of things, and that's when I found it, a torn piece of paper in my room that said you might be next. Storytime, they all looked like me. When I was in high school, I had this really good friend named Amber. I would always spend time at her house, and she would always come over to my house. Then in the beginning of our junior year, everything started to get really weird. Amber's mom started being really mean to me, and I had no idea why or what I did. On the other hand, Amber's dad was really nice to me, kind of too nice, and it made me feel gross. He would always ask for hugs, and one time, he bought me a bracelet for no reason at all. Everything was all weird, and made me super uncomfortable, so I decided to just stay away from Amber's house. By the middle of our junior year, Amber's parents were divorced, and her mom moved out. I thought that meant I could go to her house again, hoping it would be less weird. I couldn't have been more wrong, and it almost cost me everything.